Why doesn't the Supreme Court want Americans to know how many illegal aliens there are in the U.S. right now? Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court's decision on the U.S. Census for 2020. It was going to include a citizenship question, but now the Supreme Court's saying not so fast. The Supreme Court has thrown out the rationale that was used by the Trump administration for the 2020 census citizenship question, but all they've done is remand the case to lower courts for adjudication. Now, this decision obviously is a setback for President Donald Trump and the Commerce Department. They wanted to get the citizenship question onto the census for 2020. So we can know how many citizens there are, how many legal residents, how many illegal aliens there are in the United States. Now, citizenship has been included this is from the Center for Immigration Studies. The citizenship question has been included in most of the censuses that have ever been taken in the United States. And since 1870, 12 out of 15 have included this citizenship question. So there's clearly precedent for utilizing it. What there isn't precedent for is the Supreme Court stepping in and saying, you're changing a question on the form, and you need to provide a reasoned analysis under the Administrative Procedures Act. This is not a regulation. This is not a rulemaking. This is a question on a form. But the Supreme Court is saying this is just like a regulation. It has to be done in accordance with the law, which it was, since the law allows for the citizenship question to be included. And so there's not really a legal basis to say that this was like a regulation or that it was done out of accordance with the law. In fact, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of including the citizenship question on a census, and it's the specific census that they're not going with. So Chief Justice John Roberts, he has joined with the higher court's liberal justices. The Chief Justice, he was appointed by George W. Bush in the mid-2000s, but he writes, quote, "We do not hold that the agency decision here was substantively invalid, but agencies must pursue their goals reasonably. Reasoned decision-making under the Administrative Procedures Act calls for explanation for agency action. What was provided here was more of a distraction." So this is the so-called reasoned analysis that must accompany a regulation when it goes to the courts. The department said it relied on the Department of Justice, saying that the information was needed to enforce the Voting Rights Act. But what the court ruled here was that, quote, that the Department of Commerce, quote, adopted the Voting Rights Act rationale late in the process. End quote. The evidence established that the secretary had made up his mind to reinstate a citizenship question well before receiving DOJ's request, and did so for reasons unknown but unrelated to the Voting Rights Act. The court added, quote, "We share the district court's conviction that the decision to reinstate a citizenship question cannot be adequately explained in terms of DOJ's request for improved citizenship data to better enforce the VRA. Several points considered together reveal a significant mismatch between the decision the secretary made and the rationale he provided." So you got a split decision here, upholding the constitutionality of citizenship questions, but 5-4 throwing out the rationale that the Trump administration utilized. And so this appears to be designed to kick this issue out to the next census. So we got to wait 10 years to find out how many illegal aliens there are. The forms are supposed to be printed up in July. But so Trump, President Trump, he's at the G20. He's not taking no for an answer. He tweets that where he wants the census delayed potentially, so that they can adjudicate this issue. And we can see what's going on. He says, quote, "Seems totally ridiculous that our government and indeed country cannot ask a basic question of citizenship in a very expensive, detailed, and important census. In this case, for 2020, I have asked the lawyers if they can delay the census, no matter how long, until the United States Supreme Court is given additional information from which it can make a final and decisive decision on this very critical matter. Can anyone really believe that as a great country, we are not able to ask whether or not someone is a citizen? Only in America." And Trump is right. Only in America, where a political question with which the executive branch would have discretion in enforcing law, whether or not to include a citizenship question, somehow becomes an administrative matter subject to judicial review. And if the courts don't like the so-called reasoned explanation you give, it gets thrown out. Samuel Alito, he was also appointed by Bush. He noted in his dissent, quote, throughout our nation's history, the executive branch has decided, without judicial supervision or interference, whether and if so, in what manner, with what form the decennial census should inquire about the citizenship of the inhabitants of this country. Whether to put a citizenship question on the 2020 census questionnaire is a question that is committed by law to the discretion of the Secretary of Commerce and is therefore exempt from Administrative Procedures Act review. Insofar as the court holds the Secretary's decision is reviewable under the APA, I respectfully dissent. Alito is right. Again, the census has been included in the majority of censuses that have been taken. And I think that there's no reason it shouldn't be included in the 2020 census. ALG president, Americans for Limited Government president, Rick Manning, he blasted the ruling in a statement. He says that here's a reason to do the census with the citizenship question. Quote, federal spending to the states is largely based on population, and federal law prohibits people who are not in the U.S. legally from obtaining welfare. We are also assured by President Obama when he was in office that Obamacare would not apply to those here illegally. The federal government knows how many people are in the U.S. legally through the normal immigration, needs to know how many people are here illegally. Through the normal immigration naturalization process. And so we need to know how many people are here illegally so we can apply the formulas consistently. So that's a good reason. Here's another reason. The Congress has just passed another $4.6 billion border aid supplemental. This is for humanitarian aid. There's not enough beds and resources to take care of all of the people who are flooding the southern border right now. It's accelerating, 144,000 in May, 109,000 in April, 103,000 in March. That's over 350,000 people apprehended on the southern border. They were coming here illegally. There's not enough resources to take care of them. So Congress finally, Nancy Pelosi, thanks for that. We could have done this, weeks ago. But there's the 4.6 billion, so they can take care of the people who are getting apprehended better, and so hopefully that begins to alleviate the situation slightly. But the fact is that the U.S. and Mexico have come to a joint declaration on cracking down on illegal immigration. This came after President Trump. He did the tariff threat, 25% on Mexican goods coming to the U.S. by October if they didn't act to get illegal immigration under control. Now Mexico's cracking down. They've deployed their National Guard. Thousands of troops are hopefully slowing this flow down. We'll find out in a couple weeks what the numbers are for the month of June. Hopefully this number begins to decelerate and we see substantial progress made to interdict not just through the U.S.-Mexico border, but on Mexico's own southern border. We can slow down this migration that's fleeing drought conditions in Central America. Now, it's not that we're not humanitarian, but we can't accommodate all the people coming here illegally, hundreds of thousands of people. That's not what the system is designed for. That's certainly not what asylum is designed for. President Trump has given Congress 2 weeks to act to do asylum reform, to give the tools to the administration that it needs to adjudicate claims in an expedited process. The Congress has not done that yet. And so I think that President Trump, he's probably going to go forward and start deporting millions of people, or as many people as ICE can get their hands on who should not be here and who final deportation orders have been issued for. I think that that's reasonable. That's what the government's supposed to be doing, which is enforcing the law. And Congress, they should act. The asylum situation is not good. The Flores decision is required. You basically have mandatory catch and release. The 2008 human trafficking law that requires the U.S. to accept people from Central America, regardless of whether if they could be deported immediately. And they're not deportable. Other countries, they would be deportable, but in this case, they're not deportable. And I think that needs to change. I think Congress should address the asylum reform issue that President Trump has requested. And so I think these are all good reasons, though. You have a huge flood of people coming in. And I think it comes down to one party rule. I think it comes down to the Democrats want these people to come into the United States so that they can eventually get enfranchised, millions of people. So the country is being invaded by tens of millions of people who have no right to be here, intent upon taking over the voting franchise. The two-party system will become completely obsolete and uncompetitive. Democrats will win every election. So this is about one-party rule. How's that for a rationale, Chief Justice Roberts? And yet every Democrat at the debate raised their hands wanting to give free health care to this is ridiculous. The Democrats running for president for 2020, they absolutely want as many illegal immigrants as possible to come here so they can get free health care, they can become citizens, they can get amnesty, and then they can start voting. And then Republicans will never win another electoral college victory ever again. No more President Trumps, no more Republican presidents. That's it. We'll have one party rule. And they just need a few more illegal immigrants to become citizens, and then they can take over the voting franchise. Republicans won't win in Texas. And I think that's what's going on here. And so there's a rationale for asking the citizenship question. We want to know how many people they want to give amnesty to. They say, there's only 11 million illegal aliens here. They need amnesty. And then the number gets upgraded to like 12 to 15 million. Here's what I think's going on. Here's why I think, and I'm speculating here, but this is an educated guess, why the Supreme Court does not want the American people to know how many illegal aliens are here in the United States. I think it's because if you knew how many were really here, you would be outraged. Some studies, Yale, MIT, they say maybe 22 million, but that could be as high as 29 million illegal aliens in the United States right now. And so I think if you got an official count from the U.S. Census and you found that was tens of millions of people, or like 10% of the entire population of the United States was illegal aliens, you would be outraged and you would demand that something would be done. And you would be even more outraged than you are right now. And that's not a chance that the Washington, D.C. establishment, the Supreme Court, John Roberts, are willing to take. And that's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a great day.